Welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, the show designed to explore how you can step into powerful self-leadership and stop settling for less in your life, business, health, and wealth. I'm your host, Heather Angel, and as a certified energy practitioner, coach, and online business consultant with over a decade of experience, you can expect expansive, honest, and enlightening conversations about what it really takes to create the changes in your life and business that right now may just feel completely out of reach. Thank you for choosing to invest in yourself by listening to this episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about money confidence. And I'm joined by my special guest, Lesley Thomas, who is the founder of the Money Confidence Academy. And she's also the host of the Let's Talk Money and More podcast. Now, Lesley truly believes that the way we feel and think about money affects how much we make and how much we have, which is certainly an opinion I share. Now, she works mainly with service-based business owners and entrepreneurs to help them improve their relationship and confidence about money. And she really believes that the more we own our money story and get confident about it, the more we can do in terms of attracting money into our world and actually making more in our business. So without further ado, I am going to let you listen to this episode. And as always, if you want to get in touch with me or Lesley, the links are in the show notes. Enjoy. Lesley, welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, my love.
Thank you for having me on, Heather. I can't wait for the conversation.
Oh my gosh, me neither. So I'm just going to let you go straight into it because everything you say, I'm just like, yeah, I'm with you on this one, because we are going to talk about money and confidence. You are the founder of the Money Confidence Academy. So start with how you got into being a money confidence coach.
Okay, so it's a slightly convoluted story, so I'll try and kind of shorten it. I spent the first 20 years of my career working in corporate telecommunications. So I worked for BT and for Orange. I left for the same reason, many mums leave corporate life. It just was not compatible with being a mum and feeling as though I was doing a good job as an employee. At that point in time, my husband had set up his own business selling ski property in Switzerland. So I joined and I opened up at the French arm of the business, essentially. But that was not a passion for me. Skiing is a passion for my husband. It's something I tolerate, largely because I'm not particularly good at it. And the role I played in the business was very functional. I held a client's hand through the legal process of buying their ski property in France and Switzerland, interacting with the legal French and Swiss system, sending out invoices, etc. It was very, very dry. It was great from the point of view. It allowed me to do the school runs, go to sports day, nativity, you name it. I was there front row. But it didn't give me that real get out of bed in the morning. I love what I do. I've always coached and mentored throughout my career, be it running a team, being part of a mentoring program. And when I became a business owner myself, having people coming to me wanting advice and support on how to do the same. So 2 years ago, as lockdown hit, I decided I wanted to formally train as a business coach. At that point in time, I wanted to be a confidence coach for female business owners because I recognized there was a lack of confidence, a lack of belief in their own ability to be growing and developing their own businesses. But the more I looked into the subject of confidence, the more training I did myself, I saw the direct correlation between our relationship with money and our confidence in ourselves. So at that point in time, I became the Money Mastery Business Coach. But that title never really resonated with me. It kind of did what it said on the tin. But back in September, October of last year, a friend messaged me and said, Lesley, I've got to be honest with you. The Money Mastery Business Coach title leaves me cold. It doesn't define what you do. It doesn't in any way show off the skill set you have, the results that you bring for your clients. And I'd already had that going on in my head. So I rebranded earlier this year as the founder of the Money Confidence Academy, because I genuinely believe there is an absolute link between how good we are at making money and our sense of confidence. And actually, if we work on our own self-value, self-belief, self-esteem, all the things that we are concerned about with regards to making money in our business, those things will actually disappear, because those things are actually hooked on to the confidence we have in our ability.
Yeah, completely agree. And I would love to know, because I think confidence is a really interesting subject. I've had quite a few discussions around confidence, and people that have known me sort of all my life, my friends would be like, well, you've always been really confident, first one on the dance floor, last one off the dance floor, the first one out. And, I would always be seen as the so-called confident person. But I think it's interesting the view that you're coming to it from, because over the last couple of years, I know in myself, I'm whole. Like, I've done enough work on myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm fully confident. Back then, I was able to put on a persona of confidence, and I could be the fun person. But, if someone said something negative to me, I'd be shattered. So there's certainly levels I've certainly experienced in my career and as a business owner, different levels of confidence. So how do you explain confidence, or what's your definition of it?
Confidence is to me having that self-belief in the art of the possible for yourself. So believing what is possible for yourself and finding internal resources to overcome, any hurdle that is thrown at you. And confidence is a moving beast. It isn't something that you get and that's it. Yeah. Because new levels, new devils. But once you actually understand that it is possible to get more confident at something, it is possible to be able to attain what you want to, what possibly you see others have and you would like to have similar. It's having those inner resources, that inner belief that says, it's out there for me, I can do it. And actually, as babies, we are all born confident. We're all born believing we are the center of the universe. We see toddlers who are trying to walk, they get up, they fall back down again. They get up, they fall back down again. They're not looking to go, oh my God, I've fallen down. Who's just seen me do that? That's so embarrassing. They have this innate belief in themselves. They can walk, I can walk. And so they practice walking, taking those few toddling steps until actually they are walking. So something happens during our childhood to knock that confidence. And once we start to really delve into what is that trigger that caused us to be less than what we were born to be, what happened when we started to accept we were one of many, many on the planet, and allow others to shine their light more brightly as we dimmed ours to allow them to shine their life more brightly. And what I do with my clients is to help them to understand what was it that caused them to dim their light. Because it is, although we may not consciously be aware of it, it is an active choice that we make to dim our light less brightly. And it's only when we start to realize what that effect is on us when it comes to running our own businesses. So what I will very often say to my clients is, your relationship with money is a symptom of your relationship, with yourself. When it comes to growing, our business, the symptoms that show up as a result of a lack of confidence in ourselves, which ends up being reflected in our bank account, in us maybe not making as much as we want to make, not being able to attract the right clients. That is down to things like not being visible enough in our business. Why are we not visible enough in our business? Because we're concerned about what people are going to say about us, comparing us to others, how we look compared to others, not putting effective boundaries in place. Why do we not put effective boundaries in place? Because we're concerned about clients not liking us, clients choosing somebody else, losing clients. So we allow clients to dictate not turning up for an appointment, not cancelling it within plenty of time, turning up late and still expecting the full session, not paying us on time, etc., playing small in our business, being concerned about having the pricing conversation, discounting unnecessarily. None of that is due to a block about money in any way, shape, or form. It is due to a lack of self-value, self-belief in ourselves.
Absolutely spot on. And the thing that you said, which I really hope people realise, is that money is a symptom of the beliefs, the behaviours, because our behaviours are obviously influenced by our beliefs. And, I really know from my own experience and from working with all the clients I have that money is an amazing teacher. Like, you want to figure out how you're feeling about yourself and what you're doing in your business, look at your bank account. And it's not, I know we had a discussion on your podcast where I said this as well, that I'm not a believer that your self-worth is linked to the money that you have.
Absolutely,
You are worthy, you are born worthy, exactly like you said. When we're born, we're like, yeah, man, we're here, we're whole. Yeah. And then we unlearn that. We are conditioned to believe that we are less than. So that, the amount of money we earn is not a reflection of what we are worth as a human being, but it's certainly a reflection of how we're behaving and how we're showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm part of a pilot at the moment for financial literacy in a school in Wiltshire. And the portion of the course that I take, is around the children's relationship with money. They're 14, 15, and, initially they find it really, really hard to accept that their relationship with money has already been there for at least half of their lives. And they initially resist that until we delve into some of the beliefs that they have around money already. And it's only when you start to think about what it is you want from your life, what are you going to be earning, what are you going to be wearing, where are you going to be going on holiday, etc., they have already coupled their self-belief to not the money in their bank account, to the money they believe their parents have in their bank account. And and what you said is so vital. I always say to my clients that you have to decouple your sense of self-worth and self-value from the money in your bank account. What you have to do is build up your sense of self-belief and self-worth based on your ability to grow that amount of money, to believe it is possible to grow that amount of money, and then go and look at the evidence to see that it is possible for you, and then take the intentional action needed to make it happen for you. And I think once we stop that association of money defines me, actually it's my action and the results because of my actions, that is what defines me. But simply a number in your bank account, which you have placed so much merit and store on, but not taken the direct action to change, that should not be something that defines you. And I really feel, with everybody, it's really important to understand that as a society, yes, we do. We look at people who are amazingly rich and probably, at least to begin with, look at them as something that we want to attain for ourselves, but don't believe it is possible. But when you strip it back and understand how they are, where they are, the action that they have taken, and then believe it is possible for you to do the same, that is when you can start to grow that sense of what is possible for you. And once you believe what is possible for you, truly believe what is possible for you, or even have an inkling that is possible for you, go and seek the evidence, create the action, and then from there start to see the results coming through.
Absolutely. And I think that, I loved what you said about sort of, seeing what's possible, believing what's possible, because that's when the excuses come in, isn't it? That's when our little monkey mind goes, well, not for you, you've got 2 kids, or not for you because this has happened, or, whatever it is, or no one ever in your family's ever made that much money. And then before you know it, you've got all these excuses to go, well, it's okay for her, or it's okay for them, or, oh, well, they look this way, or, oh, well, they live in America, so of course, or, whatever it might be.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is just providing, as you said there, the excuses to justify us not doing something. And that's what always happens when we compare ourselves to somebody. What we're actually looking for is the excuse to not take the action, because largely it's the action that we're scared of. Going live, on LinkedIn, picking up the phone and having a conversation with that tricky client, having a discovery call with a would-be client and talking about our pricing. We will usually, if we don't have that self-belief, we will usually try and find all the excuses and therefore create the wrong evidence, because that's what our subconscious is looking for. It's looking for the evidence that by us doing things differently, we're going to get the right results. And if what we're doing is just simply reinforcing the excuses, reinforcing not taking the required action, that is when we're creating the wrong evidence, where our subconscious says, see, told you, you shouldn't have done that. You've put yourself in danger.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. All our subconscious is doing is trying to keep us safe, but it doesn't realize that we're not in danger. Aiming for this is not making me in danger. It's just, it's what I want.
Opportunity.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, because I think definitely the error I made is I didn't define my version of success when I was chasing after it. And I was going from, right, I'm going to start my business and I'm going to get to 7 figures because this coach that I've just hired or this program that I've just done, they're at 7 figures and they're, making 4 million in a launch. I can do that. And it's like, hang on, love. I'm all for quantum leaps. I'm a total believer that anything is possible. But when you're going from nothing to expecting to create a 7-figure business, there's a big journey between 0 and that.
Yeah.
And I think that can also be, it's got to the point where a good few years ago, I was like, actually, who actually am I looking up to? Who am I, being inspired by, rather than necessarily looking at these people who are sometimes just claiming to be making a lot of money and actually, profit margins are through the floor. But I'm like, well, do I really want that? Do I want a team of 50 people? Do I want offices in different countries? Is this what I'm actually aspiring to? So it's so easy for us to go, yes, I'm going to create that. But our whole body goes, but I really don't want it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I'm a real fan of people truly understanding what their values are and defining their success based, on their values. I had a conversation with somebody probably about 6 to 8 weeks ago now. They'd had a successful PT business, but started to see their revenue decline quite substantially. And they couldn't work out what was happening. They were still doing the things they needed to do, et cetera, but why were they seeing their revenue declining? And we had a conversation and we talked about, their values, what was important to them. And their number one value was freedom. So freedom to choose their hours, freedom to choose when not to work, etc. And that was born out of when they were growing up, their dad was never present in the house because their dad was working really, really hard to provide, a good level of income for the family. But as a child, this person missed their dad. They wanted him to be there. And they had made an agreement with themselves that when they grew up and had children themselves, they were going to be present. They were not going to allow financial success to dictate how much time they spent with their family. And what this person realized was they'd started to withdraw slowly from their business because they were planning to start a family later on this year. And they were subconsciously winding down the amount of marketing and self-advertising that they were doing because they did not want to be missing out on anything that was going to be happening as part of having a family. And it was only when they made that realization, they realized, well, actually, at this stage, it doesn't need to be either or. I can define what I want. I can define my working hours. I can define, do I stop taking on one-to-one clients and take on more group coaching clients? Therefore, work with more clients, but for less hours, across a period of time. And it was only when they made that realization that, yes, money was important, but actually their number one value was freedom. And once they had made that connection, they stopped self-sabotaging, because that's what they were doing. They were self-sabotaging. And I think it's once we realize what's really, really important to us. Do we want to have that 7-figure salary, which means we may have to be away from our family on a more regular basis than we would like to be? If that's the case, would a 6-figure salary or 5-figure months, would that be a fantastic amount of money to bring in, but at the same time allowed us to be more present at home? So it's exactly as you said, don't create success on somebody else's terms, create it on your own. Because when you do that and you are aligned to the end goal, that is when you won't self-sabotage. That's when your why is so strong, you will do all those things that make you feel comfortable because you are so connected to your why.
Yeah, there's such an important lesson in there, isn't it? Because we're not aware. And actually, when you in a business, especially when you actually keep an eye on the data, and it's interesting the word you use about salary. I get this a lot with clients as well. They're like, I want to bring in 6 figures, and as soon as they say that, I'm like, right, are we talking 100,000 or are we talking 900,000? Still 6 figures. So which one are we going for?
Yeah, exactly.
Very different businesses. Yeah. So it's like going, okay, well, is that income? Right. Well, where are your profit margins now? What are your outgoings? Where are you looking? What salary do you want for yourself and for your family? And I think that conversation really lessens the pressure for a lot of people, especially in those sort of first few years, or when they're looking to maybe start growing their business. They've found their feet, they've made all the mistakes. They're like, okay, I know where I'm at now. And then they want to start growing. It's that when that fear comes in going, oh, well, I need to do this, I need to do that. And it's like, well, actually, if you really break it down, how many clients do you need at what price point to achieve 5, 6, 10 grand a month?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's not that difficult, is it? It's really simple when you break it down. But when we have this big number, and like
exactly.
I said, the 6-figure thing drives me bonkers because I'm like, there's two, like, which one are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
So and I think having that breakdown, isn't it, really, as well?
Exactly. And I think as well, people talk about, 10-figure months and then 6 figures and then 7. And I have noticed, a shift, in the coaching business where 6 figures, and as you said, 6 figures can be 100 grand or it can be 999,000, but 6 figures now seems to be a lack of ambition. You seem to want to have 7 figures or 8 figures and beyond. And I think there is something dangerous about that when you don't actually look at what are we talking about? Where is the profit? How much time's being invested? How much time is left for you and your family? And yes, there will be coaches that talk about, I make this amount of money, but I only work 4 hours a month. Yeah, but how big is your team? How long did it take you to build that team? And I think there needs to be a transparency there with regards to what is good for you and right for you may not be right for somebody else. And I think we can never, ever set our gold standard by what somebody else views as their gold standard, because they could be two completely different things. And I think by understanding ourselves and what is important to us and our family, and to remove that constant need to compare, be satisfied, but equally, when you're being satisfied, check that satisfaction is not born out of fear of doing anything else. Because people will sometimes say, I don't want to be earning X amount, or I don't want to be doing what they're doing because it means X, Y, and Z. Very often that is just us trying to self-justify the limits we place on ourselves. And in the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, he talks about our upper limit. And our upper limit really is just that internal excuse. I'm here. There's no way I could go any higher. I've set my limit now, but it's a subconscious limit. You don't know you've got there until all the excuses come in as to why you're happy with that. If you're genuinely happy with that level, great. But always self-regulate, self-question to find out, do you really want more? Are you really capable of more? Or are you just scared and you want to stay there? Because normally it is people are scared and they want to give themselves the excuses to just stay there.
And I think that happens a lot, especially with women. I'm sure it happens with men as well, but especially with women. I certainly had at the beginning, oh, well, I don't want to, earn too much, because in my head, certain figures meant more sacrifice. I was just like, hang on a minute, I'm working this hard to earn this much. So if I want to quadruple the amount I'm earning, I'm going to have to work quadruply as hard. And actually, that's not the reality. I now realize at the stage I'm in my business now, I'm just like, oh, but that was a belief. I just thought, well, if I'm having to work hard, at the beginning of a business, it's like, getting a plane off the ground, isn't it? It takes a lot to get it off the ground. But actually, once you're soaring, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. We're here now. It's okay. And I would love to dive into a few takeaways for the listeners. If they listen to this and go, oh God, actually my confidence is a bit low when it comes to money, what do you see most often? What are the common patterns that you see with your clients when they come to you? I'm presuming they probably come to you and I want to earn more money, but I'm not doing it. I've got a block. Help me. Yeah. What's going on? So what are the common things that people come to you with and you're like, actually, it's not about money at all?
I think that the very first thing is believing that they have a money block. And, I have to be honest, I don't believe in money blocks. That's just the name we want to give, an excuse, basically, not to push through whatever that limiting belief is that we have. I can't make more money. It's a money block. I can't go out there and talk about my services. I'm blocked. When that's not the case at all. It is purely down to self-confidence. Because when you look at the most successful people in the world, they're not always necessarily the best at what they do, but they have this ability to market themselves and talk about themselves as though they are. And it comes down to really, really, first of all, understanding the conversation that you are having with yourself. And one of the easiest ways to do this, and this is something I always say to my clients right at the start of us working together, is take a notebook and a pen around with you wherever you go for 24 hours. Every time you have a negative thought come into your head, write it down, but write it in the positive. I wouldn't want them to reinforce that negative belief, that negative thought, but write it in the positive. And just start taking a mental note of how often you have that negative conversation. And if you were regularly hearing, no, you can't do that, you're no good, there's somebody better than you. If you constantly heard somebody externally saying that to you, how strong a mindset do you have to keep batting it back? But if that internal conversation is going on inside your head on a regular basis, then you're not giving yourself much chance to go, well, hell's bells, I can go and do that. I've just got to believe, take that first step that I can do it. So the first thing is to have the awareness, of what is going on for you. Once you have that awareness, it's then creating that real desire to make a change. And that real desire comes from really committing to what you want as far as your goals are concerned. And I really get my clients to think about their future self and to envisage their future self is connected to them with like a gold thread, basically. My future self is always, I'm in my garden office now, and she's always halfway down the garden looking up at me. And she is my accountability buddy. She is my cheerleader. And she is the person with her hands on her hips looking at me going, really? When she can see me procrastinating on not doing the thing that I need to do. And then going about creating that evidence that you can do something, because the evidence is always there. You take baby steps. Yes, I'm not talking about, big jump off a cliff type steps, but take those baby steps that reassure you and reassure your subconscious that you are doing this in a way that is moving you forward, but you're creating that evidence in a safe way that allows you to get more confidence, take bigger, bolder steps, create more intentional action, and start to create that self-belief. Because that self-belief was always there. Going back to what we said earlier in the conversation, it was always there. You just made a decision. Something happened early on in your childhood that triggered you to behave in a way that is not serving you now. And the example was given to me, which is a brilliant example of, it's like a child being on stage, the age of 4, Archangel Gabriel, there they are in the nativity play, big part, arms outstretched, and all of a sudden they trip and they fall off the stage. The audience laughs. The audience laughs because they think it's part of the show. They think you're being really comedic. But in that child's head, the audience is laughing at them. And that's the trigger point for them believing, I can't be visible. I can't be seen. Because if I am, I'm putting myself in danger of people laughing at me. And they are the people that go to the back of the class. They never put their hands up to answer a question, in class. They never put themselves forward to be in another school play or to be on the netball team, etc., etc. They shy away and they become a much, much smaller version of the person they were, not because the audience laughed at them, but because of the belief the child had that they were laughed at. And very often, our limiting beliefs are not necessarily created based on an actual specific event. It absolutely can be, but can also be triggered by our perception of what happened and the importance that we attach to it as children. We believe it is serving us. We believe it is keeping us safe. But as adults, it's hurting us. It's preventing us from growing our business. And it's only when we can start to realize the connection between something that happened that might have served us then, but is now disserving us as far as being the business owners that we want to be and growing our business in the way that we want to.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree, because we just put so much meaning on things. I think in business especially as well, you do a launch and it doesn't go as well as you'd hoped, and then you add meaning. Like the data is, okay, I thought I was going to bring in 10 grand, I brought in 5. That's the data.
Yeah.
But we then add meaning of, well, I didn't get a 10 grand launch, blah, blah, blah. I'm now a failure. I'm not as good, blah, 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 blah. And we pile on so much meaning to things that happen in our business, which it's just business.
Exactly.
And I see, and this isn't, it's not a male and female thing, but I definitely see it more with women that knocks their confidence something wrong. And it brings up, again, stuff that they're probably not even aware of unless they work with a coach, that are like, oh, that's why I've always been a bit scared and I was scared to do this. And now I've got the evidence that, I can't do it. Even though
Yeah.
they had actually a successful launch, they brought in £5,000 because it didn't meet their expectations. That, I wasn't good enough. They couldn't do it.
Absolutely.
And that's the difficulty, I think, isn't it, with, especially with the money thing. I think everything, you mentioned that, you don't believe in money blocks. You and me neither. I worked on them for ages. And it really got to the point I shared in the conversation we had before on your episode that I was like, it's not a money block. I'm just not having any sales calls, and I'm not actually putting out offers, and I'm not actually doing the things that I need to do to bring in the money.
Exactly.
There I am reading all these books about money blocks and manifestation, and I must need to heal something. And I'm like, no, just need to actually sell some stuff.
And to talk about your offers, and that is the thing, if usually when there's something going on with the client, it is something that they are not doing as opposed to something that they are doing. Or if they are doing it and it's not working, it's the way in which they are doing it. They're playing small. They're not putting themselves out there. It is the fear of failure that creates the biggest failure, which is regret. And it's what we don't try, we regret more than what we do try. And, with all those, hugely successful coaches that people look up to, they didn't go from deciding I'm going to be a coach to being hugely successful. They just don't very often talk about the lessons that they had to learn along the way. And again, their definition of success could be very, very different to our definition of success, and their measurement of how they go about talking about their success could be very different as well. And, I'm a great believer in kind of bunker mentality, where we try and shut off. And I don't mean don't follow those people that trigger you, because actually being triggered can be a really strong motivator if you choose to reframe it as motivation. There's one coach that I had on my podcast, and I actually told her I had to stop following her because she was triggering me. She was showing her Stripe bank account, her Stripe account, and all the beautiful things she was buying and all the places she was going on holiday whilst, people were recovering from lockdown, etc. And that really triggered me. And for a while, I stopped following her. But then I realized, actually, the reason I was triggered was I wanted what she had. Me not following her was not going to bring me what she had. Me understanding how she got what she had, taking action and deciding on what success was going to look like in that definition for me. Now I follow that coach avidly because I want to understand what she is doing. So it isn't about unfollowing, but it's also not about trying to follow everybody and that level of noise that is out there. All it's doing is dimming your light. So I think it is about working out how can I show and feel and demonstrate my light to best effect, learn from those who have gone before me so I can follow in their footsteps, but in a way that is congruent to me, my mission, my goals, my objectives, rather than simply trying to be a version of them. The only person I want to be the version of is the best version of me. And I think if we all focus on being the best version of us, really concentrate on what can I do to build up my level of confidence, my personal belief, then the money element will follow from there. Not because we've unblocked the money, we've unblocked our ability to believe we can earn and deserve to have that level of success financially as we are measuring it.
Absolutely. And I think you're so spot on in terms of, I'm a strong believer that synchronicities happen all the time, and people are brought into our world, circumstances, conversations that, there may be people listening to this that go, oh, that's rubbed me up the wrong way or something. And I do release quite a few episodes where people are like, oh, I didn't quite agree with that. I'm like, brilliant. Like, explore why. It may be that I'm not your cup of tea and don't follow me. That's great.
Yeah.
Or it might be something that's just kind of gone, oh, actually, that's a bit uncomfortable. It's something I need to look at. And I've experienced that very recently, actually, where I was in a conversation with someone who was very brash, a little bit misogynistic. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm getting angry. And I'm the most chilled, but I don't really get wound up by people that often. But I was like, nope, you're winding me up. And I had to really sit back and go, right, what is it about this that's getting under my skin? So I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes these things can happen. The same when it's, in air quotes, a failed launch or something's gone wrong in the business. It's an opportunity for you to go, what is it about this or this circumstance? Or like you said, someone's posting their striped balance. You're like, why am I annoyed by this? And like I say, quite often it's because it's that little jealousy of like, well, I want that.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I want that. And she's got it. And so why haven't I got it? I'm working really hard.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And I think once we make that connection, it's like a real weight is lifted off our shoulders. We can look at something and we can feel motivated by it. We can feel reassured by it. We can utilize it to say to our subconscious, see, it is possible. I know. And, I very often use the example of, running the first 4-minute mile. When Roger Bannister had done that, actually, he took a big leap of faith because nobody had ever done it before him. But how many people have subsequently done it after him or run a marathon, etc., etc.? If you just look to see who else has done what I want to do. Yes, there will be pioneers, but there's far fewer pioneers than there are people who are still doing brilliant things, but they're brilliant things that have already been done. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just learn the methodology, learn how you can do it for yourself, use that as the evidence to create that action. And from that, you will get the results that you want.
Absolutely. So well said. And I think as well, it's that realizing with the confidence piece, I think it can sometimes feel like we need everyone to get on board. We need 100,000 followers on Instagram and we need this. And actually, again, something I often say to my clients, I'm like, just look at the slice of pie that you want to attract. You don't need nearly 8 billion people on this planet. You don't need all of them to like you. In fact, you don't need necessarily to like you to be able to help them either. You just need your tribe. And for many business owners, we might be looking at maybe 100 people. 100 people in a program, boom, you've made your 250 grand.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's that simple. So I think it can be very easy to get caught up in the numbers. I would love to sort of round up this episode with looking at ways for people who are listening to this going, okay, right, need to build up my money confidence. How? What are some tangible steps that people listening to this can actually take to help bolster up their confidence? Because now we've sort of unraveled the fact that it's not really about money. What are the steps that people can start to take?
One of the first things is to remind yourself of your own value, what you have done to get you to where you are now. Women in particular, we can discount all the things that make us who we are. A little bit like becoming, nose blind to your dog when it comes in, damp after a walk. You don't kind of pick up the smell in the house anymore, or that beautiful view that you don't see any longer because you're so used to being in that scene that you don't actually see it. And it's exactly the same with our sense of our own value. So I always say to my clients, set a timer just for 8 minutes and write down all the things that you have achieved that have gotten you to where you are. That could be your qualifications. That can be, additional courses you've taken, things that you have written, testimonials, social proof, things that people have said about you, all the things that you just tend to forget about because, well, yeah, I did that accreditation and yeah, that client did say this about me and this client is now doing that. Yeah, I know that, but I don't want to talk about that. So building up, your own portfolio of the value that you have. Collate that social proof because when you have those wobbly moments, you can go back and look at, all the things that you've done. Sit down and write a list of all the results your clients get from working with you, and make it a really tricky number. 30 is the thing that I always suggest. And you find that clients sail through the first 15 or so, but then they've got to start digging really deep. But actually that triggers a positive trigger thing of the intangibles they also help their clients to do. So actually start setting some really tangible, tough but tangible goals for yourself. Look where you want to be in 12 months' time, 36 months' time, 5 years' time, re-engineering back from there. Create visuals that really connect you to your future self. A lovely thing I love to get clients to do is to go into Canva and to create a beautiful postcard of the best holiday that you can imagine yourself being on. And again, that, the most beautiful holiday will vary from person to person. For some people, that will be on a sunbed, in the Maldives. For somebody else, that will be, climbing the highest mountain in Nepal, for example. But create this postcard, then go to an app like PostSnap, and they will physically create that image into a postcard for you. And you send that postcard to yourself, but from your future self. So it'll say something like, thank you for everything that you're doing for me today that is allowing me to be on this holiday of my dreams in 5 years' time, 2 years' time, whatever that, that timing needs to be, essentially. And then that postcard will literally arrive on your front door. Stick it somewhere so that you can see it. Think about the things that are holding you back. Very often, the number one thing that is holding us back in building our business is visibility. What is it about visibility that is holding you back? Is it seeing yourself on camera? Well, if that's the case, to begin with, go on podcasts where people don't necessarily utilize the video, they just utilize the audio. Collaborate with somebody, go live on a platform with somebody, because it's much easier when you are being asked questions to begin with. So to work out what is it that is holding you back and start to commit to do more of it. And slowly but surely, you will start to realize that confidence will start to return. And whilst I don't believe in affirmations per se, creating affirmations is not going to move you from being, where you are to where you want to be on their own, but they will create that conversation that you want to be having with yourself. And our subconscious doesn't know the difference between the future that we are imagining and what has already happened. So if we can utilize the power of visualization and affirmations to start talking to ourselves as though we were our very own best friend, and having that awareness of where that conversation is throwing us off course, that slowly but surely we start to see ourselves lifting up, and we start to see putting our shoulders back and getting excited about the future that we're actively creating for ourselves, rather than the one we don't feel worthy of. Because creating that sense of self-worth, that self-confidence, it's all done by taking small steps at a time, glancing over your shoulder and actually seeing how far you have come. And a really big one in creating that confidence actually is celebrating at each step along the way. I'm a really, really big advocate of starting, every coaching session with, so what are we celebrating today? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing, but always think about what are we celebrating and ensuring that we are celebrating whenever we can. Because again, it's like a small child, every time a child gets a clap from their parents or the teacher, like, oh my goodness, I'm being clapped. And, our self-conscious is exactly the same. It loves us reassuring it of how brilliant we are, because it reminds our subconscious of what it used to be like until we allowed our light to be dimmed.
I think that there's so many. I really loved the listing out all the ways that you help your clients, because I think that's such a powerful exercise for people to do, because like you said, it's when they get to the intangible ones, certainly something I struggled with for the longest time, because I was like, well, they're completely different by the time they leave me. But, you know, it might not be a monetary amount. It may not be that they managed to buy this big house, but look at them. And then they'll say, like, I feel amazing, blah, blah. And it's like, well, all those intangible results lead into the tangible ones, but it's quite often the intangible ones that happen first for the people. Like you said, once they build the confidence and they start taking that action. And sometimes you do need to sort of realize how far you've come. And something you said about the skills as well. And something I wrote down here was, especially for women, is gifts. Like sometimes we're just like, oh, well, we discount what we're good at because it comes so easy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, well, yeah, of course I'm a good listener because that's not a thing. Or, yeah, well, marketing's just easy. Copywriting's just easy. Yeah, for you. Because it's something you do.
Exactly. And, you know, and as women, far more than men, we bat back a compliment immediately. You know, oh, that's a fantastic cake you made. Oh, it took me 5 minutes. Oh, I love the dress you're wearing. Oh, I've had it for years.
Yeah.
Oh, you look fantastic tonight. I don't know why. I haven't been in the shower. Why do we do that? You know, the minute you actually pause, and this is something for people to try, and the next time you get a compliment, just go, thank you very much, and absorb the compliment. Because absorbing it, you get this feeling in your solar plexus where you kind of go, yeah, I'm taking that on board. I do look good tonight. That is a great cake. I did make a really nice, I did a really nice thing, whatever that thing might be. Just accept it, because actually we always feel much more uncomfortable when we've batted back a compliment than we do when we just go, thank you very much. And it does, it fills us up with that sense of somebody else giving us that gift of confidence. So the more that we absorb it, the more confident we will become.
Absolutely. That is one of the first things my coach back in the day, about 8 years ago or something, when I hired my first coach, and she complimented me on the first call as a test. She then told me, and I immediately was like, oh, no, like bat it away. She's like, right, here's your first exercise. Just say thank you. And now I have it's such a power. I know it must sound potentially to some people listening like such a smallest thing to do, but when you can accept a compliment, that is accepting a gift. And you would never, if someone gave you a birthday gift, you go, no, I can't take it, take it back, blah, blah, blah. But actually, that's exactly what you're doing. And I think it's a really good one. And, I know we're talking about money, but confidence is everything. When you're looking in the mirror and you hear that, as you were saying, that little voice in your head going, oh, negative, whether it be, oh, my thighs are too big today, or, oh, gosh, I'm all slouchy, or blah, blah, whatever it is. Be really mindful of, catch yourself and go, no, I look great.
Exactly.
Amazing. I appreciate appreciate my body, appreciate whatever it might be. And these little things, these small things can make such a huge difference. And it's been so fabulous having you on to have this conversation, because we could go on for hours. There's so many different rabbit holes we could go into. But I think hopefully what I hope everyone's taken away is that it's not about money. It's never about money. Money is the teacher. It's the, something we've, just to be completely clear for everyone listening, Lesley and I have had 2 conversations today. I was on her podcast this morning and now she's on my podcast now. And I'm like, which conversation did we say this in? But something that I've heard you say, Lesley, is that, money is the symptom and it's the result, and it shows, it's a spotlight almost to go, hey, there's something to look at here. Yeah. And I think that's what we can do. We can take a look and go, right, okay, I'm going to step back from this, take the emotion out of it. That's the money. What actions am I taking? Which I love is what you talk about so much, because I think we can get a bit caught up in, I need to heal this, I need to heal that. Yes, there's a place for that. Yes, there's some things that are going to come up most likely, but also we need to take action. If we're running a business, we've got to take some action.
Yeah, and that is exactly it. And the whole money thing, what's in your bank account, etc. Again, something I get my clients to do is to track their bank account, check their bank account daily. To begin with, they're like, oh my God, I can't do that. Well, if you just regard that number in your bank account as information, and as information upon which you can take action, then that number is no longer scary. It's only scary when you're not taking action. We all know when there's things that we have to do, and it's the getting started. It's the first time that we walk into our children's PTA group meeting, the scariness of meeting those people for the first time, or having to go live on LinkedIn for the first time, having a conversation with a brand new client for the first time. All those things to begin with are scary, but actually once we're doing them, we realize they're far less scary. And it's exactly the same with our bank account. If we just view those numbers as information, and as information upon which we can then build the appropriate action to get that number where we want it to be, we take away that scariness. We take away that, that monster in the corner of the room. It's purely there to educate us. And once we're educated, then we can choose to do something about it. And I think very often we give money a power it never wants to have. Money is not a power. It is simply the end result of us doing something else, basically. It's an energy. It's an exchange of energy. And once we just see money as the facilitator that allows us to create choices, to have options, then we take away the power that money never wanted to have anyway. It'll very happily give us that power back. It just wants to be there to enable us to do the things that we want to do. It never wants to be that scary monster that we're too afraid to look at or connect with. It purely wants to enable us to be able to have options to make choices.
Yeah. And I think that is just the perfect place to round it up. Where can people find you, my lovely? Where can they find your work? Where can they find your socials?
So the website is the Money Confidence Academy. So all my socials, are on there. A load of free resources can be found on the website. Emailing me is just Lesley at the Money Confidence Academy. And on Instagram, I am Lesley Thomas Coaching. If you go to my website, it's very, very easy to navigate to me in all sorts of places from there.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much for having this conversation. Like I said, we could have probably gone on for many more hours, but it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Take care.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, any resources and links mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would be so grateful if you would kindly share, subscribe, and leave a positive review so that the podcast can help and reach as many people as possible. Thank you again for listening. Have a gorgeous day, and I'll see you in the next episode.